Hi, I'm continuing in Austin, Texas. Let's talk a little bit more about Spark and a metric engine. Some of my earliest videos, I talk about the steps that are required to produce an analytical output. They include selection, sorting, column builds, column sub-selects in order to get the columns formatted correctly, calculations, aggregations, presenting the results. All of those steps are very possible to do within Spark. The one thing that's a little unique in my consolidated data supply chain that I'm not convinced has been really thought about completely in terms of how Spark processes is the process of generating new transactions off of the balance and applying that balance, applying those transactions to new balances. In other words, the posting process itself. Posting process, certainly we can do aggregations, certainly you can do a posting process, but that process of doing that all within one flow is one of the key aspects that I think is needed for consolidated data supply chain. It'll be interesting to see as I work through this technology work over the next few months to see how far down the road we can push those kinds of things to get to a consolidated data supply chain where we read the transactions. Certainly we're going to have to read yesterday's balances as well to have a consolidated data supply chain. And we're going to have to then also have attributes that describe those transactions and balances, customers, contracts, so on and so forth. Then we have to then apply the transactions to yesterday's balances to create new balances. We then have to update those balances to generate new transactions for time-based processes, temporal processes. Interest is a good example, a simple example of that. And apply the interest transaction generated to its balance. And that can go potentially through many different levels. A transaction applied to balance generates new transaction, applied to balance generates new transaction, applied to balance. Before we get to the end of that processing stream where we need to do the final steps of selecting, sorting, aggregating, and presenting the results as well as joining to pivot to the other attributes that are of interest. All of these things are interesting to see how the consolidated data supply chain ideas, Spark as a technology, our need for greater analytics, blockchain as a transaction repository. All of those sort of themes are coming together at this time, and it may bode well for our ability to reinvent business systems that help us understand our world, measure our activity in many different ways. That would be very interesting thinking about.